The shouting started the moment I walked into the living room carrying my cup of tea. My hands were still shaking a little from the arthritis that had been getting worse every year. I was 72 years old, but in that moment, I felt every single one of those years pressing down on me like a heavy blanket I couldn't shake off. "Enough is enough, Margaret," my son-in-law David yelled. His face was red, veins standing out on his neck. He pointed right at me like I was something dirty on the carpet. "You're a burden on this family. We can't keep doing this. Leave, just pack your things and go." My daughter, Lisa, stood right beside him. She didn't say a word at first. She just looked down at her hands and nodded slowly. That small nod felt like a knife twisting in my chest. My own little girl, the one I had rocked to sleep every night when she was a baby, the one I had worked 2 jobs to put through college, was agreeing with him. She was agreeing that her own mother was nothing but a burden. I set my teacup down on the coffee table before it slipped from my fingers. My voice came out quieter than I expected. "David, Lisa, what are you saying? This is my home too. I've been here for you since the day you two got married." David laughed, but there was no warmth in it. It was a hard, bitter sound. "Your home, you've been living off us for years, Margaret. Eating our food, using our electricity, taking up space. My parents need a place to stay. They're getting older and they deserve to be with family. We can't keep carrying you anymore." Lisa finally spoke, her voice soft but firm. "Mom, it's true. Things are tight right now. David's job has been stressful, and with the kids, we just need more room. His mom and dad have been asking for months. We thought you'd understand." I stared at my daughter. Little memories flashed through my mind like old photographs. Lisa at 5 years old running to me after scraping her knee. Lisa at 18 crying on my shoulder when her first boyfriend broke her heart. Lisa on her wedding day hugging me tight and whispering, "You're the best mom in the world." Where had that girl gone? "You think I'm the one being carried?" I asked, my voice cracking just a little. I could feel tears burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not yet. After everything I've done for this family. David crossed his arms. "Done? What exactly have you done lately except sit around and complain about your aches and pains? We're the ones working, paying the bills, raising your grandkids. You're retired. You should be grateful we let you stay this long." The grandkids, my sweet Emma and little Jacob, they were upstairs right now, probably with headphones on trying to block out the yelling. I had watched them every single day after school so Lisa and David could both work. I had cooked their meals, helped with homework, told them stories about their grandfather who passed away too young. And now I was being told I was in the way. I took a slow breath. The pain in my chest wasn't just from the argument. It was deeper. It was the kind of hurt that comes when the people you love most look at you like you're a problem to solve instead of family. "Lisa," I said, turning to my daughter, "do you really feel this way? After all the years I helped you when money was tight, when you and David were first married and struggling." She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Mom, that was different. We were young, now we have responsibilities. David's parents have nowhere else to go, they're family too." Family, the word hung in the air like smoke. I wanted to scream that I was family. I was the one who had been there first, but I stayed quiet for a moment, letting their words sink in. David looked satisfied, like he had finally said what needed saying. Lisa looked uncomfortable, but she didn't take it back. I thought about the secret I had been carrying for so long, the one they had no idea about, the one that made their angry words feel like such a cruel joke, but I didn't say anything about it. Not yet. Some truths are too heavy to drop in the middle of a shouting match. Instead, I said softly, "I never wanted to be a problem for you. I thought we were helping each other." David rolled his eyes. "Helping, please, just admit it, Margaret, you're holding us back. My parents can move in next month. We'll help you find a nice senior place or something. It's time." Lisa nodded again. "It'll be better for everyone, Mom, you'll see." Better for everyone. Those words echoed in my head. Better for them, maybe. But what about me? What about the years I had quietly sacrificed so they could live comfortably in this big apartment with the high rent and nice neighborhood? They had no clue how much I had been protecting them from worry. My hands clenched at my sides. The betrayal felt raw and fresh, like a wound that had been hiding under the surface for years and was finally breaking open. My own daughter choosing her husband's side so easily, agreeing that I should be pushed out so his parents could take my place. It made me wonder how long they had been talking about this behind my back. How many nights had they whispered about getting rid of Grandma while I was in the next room? I looked at David. He was tall and confident, the kind of man who always thought he knew best. He had been good to Lisa in many ways, but he had never really respected me. I was just the old woman in the background who watched the kids and stayed out of the way. And Lisa, my beautiful daughter who used to call me every day just to hear my voice, now she stood there like a stranger, nodding along as her husband called me a burden. The argument had started so suddenly, but it felt like it had been building for months. Little comments here and there, David complaining about noise when I walked with my cane, Lisa suggesting I eat dinner in my room because the kids needed the table for homework. I had brushed it off, telling myself they were just stressed. Families go through rough patches, but this wasn't a rough patch. This was them deciding I didn't belong anymore. Tears finally slipped down my cheeks. I wiped them away quickly. You really want me gone that badly? David didn't hesitate. Yes, it's time, Margaret, pack your things. We'll give you a week or two to find somewhere. Lisa opened her mouth like she might say something softer, but then she closed it again. That silence hurt worse than any yelling. I stood there for a long moment, the weight of their words pressing down on me. My mind raced with memories of better days, of holidays around the table, of holding my grandbabies when they were newborns. All of that felt so far away now. But underneath the pain, something else was stirring, a quiet resolve. They thought they knew everything about our situation. They thought they were in control. They had no idea how wrong they were. I turned away from them and walked slowly toward my small bedroom at the end of the hall. My steps were careful because of my bad hip, but my thoughts were clear and sharp. As I reached my door, I heard David mutter to Lisa, "Finally, we can start fresh with my parents here. It'll be good for the kids too." Lisa's reply was so quiet I almost missed it. "I hope Mom will be okay." That small bit of doubt in her voice was the only crack in their plan, but it wasn't enough, not nearly enough to heal the damage they had just done. I closed my bedroom door behind me and sat down on the edge of my bed. My hands were trembling again, but this time it wasn't just from age or arthritis. It was from the deep, burning ache of betrayal by the two people I had loved and supported the most. They wanted me out so David's family could move in. They had called me a burden to my face. My own daughter had nodded in agreement. But they didn't know the truth. They didn't know that for the past 3 years, I had been the one quietly paying the entire rent on this expensive apartment. $5,200 every single month, taken straight from my late husband's careful investments and my own savings that I had never touched until they needed help. They thought I was living off them. The reality was the complete opposite. I picked up the phone from my nightstand the next morning after a sleepless night. My fingers dialed the number for the moving company I had looked up earlier. As the line rang, I could already imagine the look on David's face when he realized what was really happening, when the truth finally hit him. He would go pale, I was sure of it. And in that moment, as I waited for someone to answer the phone, the pain in my heart mixed with something else, a heavy, quiet kind of justice that had been a long time coming. If you have ever felt pushed aside by the people you love most, I hope you'll stay with me through this story. It gets even more painful before it starts to heal. Please like this video if you're feeling the weight of family betrayal right now, and let me know in the comments what you would do in my place. Subscribe so you don't miss what happened next, because trust me, you won't want to. The phone clicked on the other end. "Moving services, how can I help you today?" I took a deep breath and said clearly, "I need to schedule a full move out as soon as possible." That was only the beginning. The moving company lady on the phone was kind and efficient. She asked for the address, the date I wanted, and how many rooms needed packing. I gave her all the details in a steady voice, even though my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. When I hung up, the apartment felt quieter than it had in years. Too quiet. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time, staring at the faded photo on my nightstand. It was a picture of me, my late husband Robert, and a young Lisa smiling at the beach during one of our family vacations. Robert had passed away 12 years ago from a sudden heart attack, leaving me with a good life insurance payout and some smart investments he had set up. He always said, "Margaret, take care of our girl no matter what." I had taken those words to heart more deeply than anyone knew. That same afternoon I heard footsteps in the hallway. Lisa knocked softly on my door before pushing it open a crack. Her eyes looked tired, like she hadn't slept much either. "Mom, can we talk?" I nodded and patted the bed beside me. She came in and sat down, twisting her hands in her lap the way she did when she was little and knew she had done something wrong. For a moment, it felt like old times. just mother and daughter. I'm sorry about yesterday, she said quietly. David was really worked up. Things have been stressful at his job and his parents keep calling every day asking when they can move in. I didn't mean to hurt you. I looked at her face, the same face I had kissed goodnight thousands of times. But you nodded, Lisa. You agreed with him when he called me a burden. That hurt more than the yelling. She sighed and looked away. I know, I didn't want to argue with him in front of you. He's been talking about this for weeks. His mom has bad knees and needs a place without stairs, and our apartment is perfect for them. We thought if we all sat down calmly, you'd understand it's not personal. Not personal? The words landed like another small slap. I wanted to tell her right then about the rent. About how every month for 3 years I had transferred $5,200 from my account to the landlord so they could keep living in this nice neighborhood with good schools for Emma and Jacob. I had never once complained or asked for thanks. I did it because I loved them and wanted them to have stability after Robert died. But I held back. Some secrets need the right moment to come out like a slow-building storm. Instead, I asked, do you remember when you and David first got married? You two were so excited about this apartment, but the rent was higher than you expected. Money was tight with the wedding debts and David's new job. Who helped you that first year? Lisa blinked. You did, Mom. You gave us some money to get started. We were grateful. I nodded slowly. And when Jacob was born early and you had all those hospital bills, who covered the extra costs so you wouldn't lose sleep worrying? You, she whispered. You were always there. That's right, I said gently. I never kept count because that's what family does. We help each other without keeping score. But now I'm the one being told I'm in the way, that I'm holding you back. Lisa's eyes filled with tears. It's not like that. We love you, Mom. The kids adore you. But David's parents are getting older too and they don't have anyone else. His dad worked hard all his life and now he needs help. We thought there was enough room for everyone, but things feel crowded. Crowded? That word made me think of all the times I had stayed in my small bedroom so they could have the living room to themselves. All the evenings I ate dinner alone so they could have family time. I had made myself small on purpose, trying not to be a burden. And still, it wasn't enough. David appeared in the doorway then, his arms crossed. He must have been listening. Margaret, we didn't mean to make you cry yesterday, but let's be honest. You're not contributing financially anymore. You're retired. We pay all the bills around here. It's only fair that we make decisions for the household. I almost laughed at how wrong he was, but I kept my face calm. Contributing, I repeated softly. Is that how you see it? Money in, money out? He shrugged. Pretty much. My parents will help with chores and watching the kids sometimes. It'll balance things out. Lisa looked uncomfortable again, caught between us. David, maybe we can find another way. Mom could have the guest room or something. No, David said firmly. My parents need the space, they've earned it. Margaret can find a nice assisted living place. There are good ones nearby. We'll even help pay the deposit if needed. Helped pay? The irony was so thick I could taste it. They had no idea I was the reason they could afford this place at all. That evening the kids came to see me after dinner. Emma, who was 10, climbed onto my bed and hugged me tight. Grandma, is it true you're moving away? Daddy said you need your own house now. Jacob, only 7, stood by the door with wide eyes. Who will read us stories? Who will make pancakes on Saturdays? Their innocent questions broke something inside me. I hugged Emma back and tried to keep my voice steady. I'm not sure yet, sweethearts, but no matter where I go, I will always love you both so much. Emma whispered, I don't want you to leave. It won't feel like home without you. Those words stayed with me long after the kids went to bed. The apartment grew quiet again, but my mind was loud with memories. I remembered the day Lisa brought David home for the first time. He had been polite and charming, talking about his big dreams for their future. I had welcomed him with open arms because he made my daughter happy. Over the years, he had become part of our family, but he had also slowly pushed me to the edges. Little comments about old people ways, or how I spoiled the kids too much. I had overlooked them because I wanted peace. Now the peace was shattered. Late that night I heard David and Lisa arguing in their bedroom. Their voices carried through the walls. David was saying, she has to go, Lisa. My parents are counting on us. If we keep letting her stay, she'll never leave on her own. Old people get comfortable and then it's too late. Lisa's voice was softer. She's my mom, David. I feel awful about how we said it yesterday. Maybe we should have been gentler. Gentler won't work, he replied. She needs to hear the truth. We're doing her a favor. She'll thank us later when she's in a place with people her own age. I lay there in the dark, listening to my son-in-law talk about me like I was a piece of furniture that had outlived its usefulness. The betrayal felt heavier now, mixed with a deep sadness for what our family had become. Lisa had always been close to me growing up. After Robert died, we leaned on each other. When she married David, I stepped back to give them space, but I never stopped supporting them quietly. The next morning I made breakfast like always, pancakes for the kids, coffee for everyone. David came into the kitchen and poured himself a cup without looking at me. Lisa gave me a small, guilty smile. Thanks, Mom. I nodded and said nothing about the movers I had already scheduled for the end of the week. Let them think everything was normal for now. But inside, the regret was already forming in my heart, not just for them, but for myself too. Regret that I had given so much without ever teaching them the value of gratitude. Regret that I had hidden my help so well that they truly believed I was taking from them instead of giving. As the day went on, the tension in the apartment grew thicker. David started measuring the living room, talking loudly about where his parents' furniture would fit. Lisa helped him move some of my things out of the way just to see. Every small action felt like another cut. That afternoon, while the kids were at school, Lisa sat with me again. Mom, I know this is hard, but David and I have been under so much pressure. His parents helped us when we were starting out too, you know. They gave us the down payment for our first car. We owe them. I looked at her steadily. And what do you owe me, Lisa? She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was small. Everything, I guess, but it's different with parents. You always said you'd do anything for me. I did, I said simply, and I still would. She reached for my hand, but I pulled it back gently. The warmth I once felt toward her was buried under layers of hurt now. By evening, David was on the phone with his parents, telling them the good news. Yes, Mom, the room will be ready soon. Margaret is moving out next week. It'll be perfect. I stood in the hallway listening, my heart aching for the family that was breaking apart because of greed and assumptions. They thought they were making a smart choice for their future. They had no idea they were destroying the foundation that had been holding them up all along. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about the mistake I had made. I had loved them too quietly. I had protected them from financial worries without ever letting them see the cost. Now those hidden truths were about to come crashing down, and someone was going to feel the full weight of regret. The next morning, the doorbell rang early. It was the moving company representative coming for a quick assessment. I let him in quietly while David and Lisa were still getting ready for work. When David walked into the living room and saw the man with the clipboard and measuring tape, his face changed. Confusion first, then a flash of worry. "What's going on?" he asked sharply. I looked at him calmly and said the words that would change everything. "I'm having my things packed and moved out, just like you wanted." But as I said it, I knew the real shock was still coming. Because when they learned who had really been paying the rent all this time, the regret would hit them like a wave they could never outrun. David's eyes narrowed. "You already called movers without talking to us first." Lisa stepped out of the bedroom, her hair still wet from the shower. She froze when she saw the man. And in that moment, the cliffhanger of what was about to unfold hung heavy in the air. They had pushed me to this point. Now the truth was about to push back harder than they ever imagined. The moving company man stood there with his clipboard, marking measurements on a small floor plan. He was polite and professional, talking about packing timelines and how they could have everything ready in just a few days. I nodded along, keeping my voice steady even though my stomach was twisting into knots. David stared at me like I had grown a second head. "Margaret, what is this? You can't just call movers without discussing it with us first. This is our home." I turned to him slowly, the words I had held back for so long finally feeling ready to surface, but not all at once. "Not yet. You told me to leave, David. You said I was a burden and that I needed to pack my things. So that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm making it easy for everyone." Lisa stepped closer, her face pale and her eyes wide with confusion. She still had the towel wrapped around her wet hair. "Mom, wait. We didn't mean right this second. We thought we'd have time to help you find a place to make it smooth for the kids. This feels too sudden." The mover glanced between us, clearly sensing the tension. He cleared his throat. "I can come back later if this is a bad time." "No," I said firmly. Please continue. I want to know how quickly we can get this done. David's jaw tightened. He crossed his arms and tried to sound in control. Look, Margaret, we appreciate you taking the initiative, but let's slow down. My parents aren't ready to move in tomorrow. We need to coordinate everything properly. I looked at my son-in-law and saw the first crack in his confidence. He had expected me to argue, to beg, maybe even to cry and make them feel guilty. Instead, I was moving forward calmly, and that seemed to unsettle him more than shouting ever could. Lisa pulled me aside into the kitchen while the mover continued his work in the living room. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Mom, please, you're making this harder than it has to be. David and I talked last night after the kids went to bed. We feel terrible about how the argument went. We love you. We just need space for his family too. Can't we find a compromise? I studied her face. My daughter looked exhausted, caught in the middle between her husband and her mother. Part of me wanted to hug her and tell her everything would be okay, the way I did when she was small. But another part, the part that had been quietly paying the bills and swallowing my pride for years, felt a deep weariness. Compromise? I asked softly. Like the compromises I made when I gave up my own comfortable house after your father died, so I could be closer to help with the grandkids. Or the compromises where I ate alone in my room so you two could have date nights without worrying about me. Lisa's eyes filled with tears again. I know you've sacrificed a lot. You've always been there for us. But David's parents sacrificed too. They helped us buy our first car and gave us money when we were struggling with infertility treatments before Emma came. We owe them. There it was again, the balance sheet of family debts. I wondered how she could keep score so carefully with his side, but never once question where the money for this expensive apartment had really come from. I took a deep breath and decided to reveal a small piece of the truth, just enough to plant the seed. Lisa, have you ever stopped to think about how you afford this place? The rent is $5,200 a month. That's a lot for one salary, even with David's good job. She blinked, surprised by the question. We manage. David handles the finances mostly. We've been careful with budgeting. I nodded but said nothing more. Let her wonder. Let the question linger in her mind like a loose thread. David walked into the kitchen then, his face still flushed. The mover says he can start packing boxes as early as tomorrow if you want. But Margaret, this is crazy. You're acting like we kicked you out on the street. We were going to help you find a nice senior community with activities and medical support. Something suitable for your age. Suitable for my age. The words strung, reminding me how they saw me now. Not as the strong woman who raised Lisa alone after Robert's death, not as the grandmother who had been their rock during tough times, but as an old lady who had outstayed her welcome. I don't need help finding a place, I said quietly. I have options. I've had them for a long time. That sentence hung in the air. David frowned, clearly trying to figure out what I meant. Lisa looked even more uneasy. The rest of the day passed in a strange, heavy silence broken only by small conversations with the kids when they came home from school. Emma clung to my side, asking questions I couldn't fully answer yet. Grandma, if you move, can we still have sleepovers? Jacob drew me a picture of our family all together in one big house and told me to take it with me so I wouldn't forget them. Their love felt pure and uncomplicated, a painful contrast to the calculated decisions their parents were making. I hugged them both tight and whispered that no matter what happened, they would always be my greatest joy. That evening after dinner, David and Lisa sat me down in the living room for what they called a family meeting. The mover had left, but the measuring marks on the floor felt like evidence of the coming changes. David spoke first, trying to sound reasonable. Margaret, we didn't handle yesterday well. We apologize for the yelling, but the truth is we've been feeling the pressure for months. My parents are lonely and need family around them. Lisa and I want to do right by everyone. If you move out willingly, we can make the transition smooth. We'll cover moving costs and even help with the first few months of wherever you choose to go. Lisa nodded quickly. Yes, Mom, we want this to be positive. The kids will still see you all the time. Nothing has to change between us. I listened to their careful words, their attempt to soften the blow after the harsh argument. It was too late for that. The damage was already done. The betrayal had sunk deep into my bones. I leaned forward and asked the question that had been burning inside me. Tell me honestly, David, when did you start seeing me as a burden instead of family? Was it when I started needing help with groceries because of my hip? Or was it when your parents began pressuring you to make room for them? He shifted uncomfortably. It's not about seeing you as a burden exactly, it's about priorities. We have limited space and limited resources. We need to think about the future. Limited resources. Again, that phrase made the secret inside me push harder to come out. They truly believed they were the ones stretching every dollar. They had no idea I had been quietly covering the biggest expense of all so they wouldn't feel financial stress. I stood up slowly, my hip aching from all the tension. I understand priorities. I've had my own for a long time. Taking care of my daughter and her family has always been at the top of my list. Lisa reached for my hand again. This time I let her take it. Her fingers felt cold. Mom, please don't make this harder, we're all hurting here. Hurting, yes we were, but the pain wasn't equal. Mine came from betrayal by the people I had given the most to. Theirs was just beginning, though they didn't know it yet. As I walked back to my room that night, I heard them whispering again in the hallway. David's voice was low and frustrated. She's acting strange, calling movers without telling us. What if she has some plan? We need to make sure she doesn't cause drama when my parents arrive. Lisa sounded worried. She's my mother, David. I feel like we're losing her trust. Maybe we should have been more grateful over the years. Grateful for what? He snapped back. She lives here rent-free. We let her stay because she's family, but enough is enough. Rent-free, the word echoed in my mind as I closed my door. If only they knew. I sat at the small desk in my room and opened the folder where I kept all my important papers. Bank statements, investment records, the lease agreement with my name, quietly added years ago as a co-signer who had taken over the payments when their finances got tight. I had never bragged about it. I had simply done it because I could, and because I loved them. The regret I felt was heavy now, not just for them but for the way I had enabled them to take my help for granted. I had hidden the truth too well, thinking it would protect our relationship. Instead, it had allowed resentment to grow in the shadows. The next morning brought another blow. David announced at breakfast that his parents would be coming to visit that weekend to measure the space themselves and start planning their move. Just a short visit, he said casually, to make sure everything feels right. Lisa avoided my eyes. The kids looked confused but excited about seeing their other grandparents. I smiled calmly and said, "That sounds nice. Family should spend time together." But inside I was already preparing. The movers were scheduled to begin light packing the following Monday. By then, the truth would start to unravel. Later that day, while David was at work and Lisa was running errands with the kids, I made a phone call to my lawyer, an old friend of Robert's who had helped with the estate after my husband passed. I told him the situation and asked him to prepare a simple letter explaining the rent payments over the past 3 years. Nothing aggressive, just the facts. He warned me gently, "Margaret, this could change family relationships forever. Are you sure you want to go this route?" I thought about Lisa nodding while David yelled at me. I thought about the grandkids asking if I was leaving for good. I thought about all the quiet sacrifices that had been thrown back in my face. Yes, I told him, it's time they knew the truth. When Lisa returned home that evening, she found me sitting quietly in the living room. She sat down across from me and tried one more time. "Mom, I had a long talk with David today. He agrees we should slow down. Maybe you can stay a few more months until we find the right place for you. We don't want to rush you out." I looked at my daughter and saw the genuine worry in her eyes. For a moment, the warm memories of our life together pushed through the pain, but the betrayal was still there, sharp and real. "That's kind of you," I said, "but I've already made arrangements. The movers will start next week." Her face went white. "Next week, Mom, that's too fast. The kids aren't ready, we're not ready." I stood up and walked over to her. I placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, the way I did when she was a little girl scared of thunderstorms. "Lisa, sometimes things have to move fast when the truth has been hidden for too long." She frowned, confused. "What truth?" I didn't answer, not yet. Instead, I left her with that hanging question as I went to my room and closed the door softly. The weekend was coming. David's parents would arrive soon, excited about their new home. My movers were lined up, and the letter from my lawyer was being prepared. The family I had loved and supported for so many years was about to learn how deeply their assumptions had wounded me, and how one secret could change everything they thought they knew about who was really carrying whom. As I turned off the light that night, the weight of regret settled over all of us, different for each person, but heavy just the same. They had chosen to push me out thinking they were protecting their future. Soon they would realize they had been tearing apart the very support that had been holding their world together all along. And when that realization hit, the pale faces and stunned silence would be only the beginning of the long road to regret. The weekend arrived faster than I expected. Saturday morning brought the sound of excited voices at the front door. David's parents, Harold and Susan, had driven up from their smaller town 2 hours away. Harold was a tall man with a firm handshake and a loud laugh. Susan moved slowly with her walker, complaining cheerfully about her bad knees. They hugged David and Lisa like long-lost heroes, then turned to me with polite but distant smiles. "Margaret, good to see you," Harold said, patting my shoulder a little too hard. "Heard you're getting your own place soon. Smart move at our age, right? More independence." Susan nodded, already looking around the living room with bright eyes. "This space is perfect. Plenty of room for my sewing machine and Harold's big TV. The grandkids will love having us here full-time." Emma and Jacob ran to greet them, calling them Grandpa Hal and Grandma Sue. The children seemed happy, but I caught Emma glancing at me with worried eyes, like she knew something was shifting underneath all the smiles. I stayed quiet during the tour of the apartment. David proudly showed his parents the main bedroom they would soon take over, pointing out where my things would be cleared out. Lisa walked beside me, her hand occasionally brushing mine, as if she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. At lunch, the conversation flowed easily around the table. Harold talked about his retirement hobbies, Susan shared recipes she wanted to cook for the family. David looked relaxed for the first time in days, like everything was falling into place. Lisa laughed at their stories, but I noticed the way her eyes kept flicking toward me, searching for something. I ate slowly, listening more than speaking. Every time Susan mentioned how grateful they were for making room for family, a fresh wave of pain moved through my chest. They spoke as if I had simply decided to move on, as if this was a natural next step, instead of a forced exit built on lies and assumptions. After the meal, while the kids played in their room, the adults sat in the living room with coffee. Harold leaned back in his chair and said, "David, son, you've done well for yourself here. Nice neighborhood, good schools for the little ones, must be expensive though. How do you manage the rent on one salary?" David puffed up a little, proud. "We budget carefully, Dad, cut back where we can. Lisa works part-time when she can. We make it work because family comes first." Lisa shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. I watched her face, remembering all the times she had thanked me quietly over the years for small helps here and there. Never once had she asked about the big picture. I couldn't hold the next words back completely. "It is expensive," I said softly. $5,200 every month, that's a heavy load for any family." Everyone turned to look at me. Susan raised her eyebrows. Harold chuckled. "Well, Margaret, sounds like you know the exact number, been checking the mail or something." David's laugh was short and forced. "Mom's just being helpful. She knows we keep things tight." I met David's eyes directly. "I know more than you think." The room grew quieter. Lisa tried to change the subject, asking Susan about her garden back home, but the seed had been planted. I could see the small flicker of doubt in David's expression, the way he watched me more carefully after that. Later that afternoon, Susan pulled me aside in the hallway while the others were busy. Her voice was kind but firm. "Margaret, I want you to know we appreciate you stepping aside. It's not easy at our age to start over, but family has to make sacrifices. You'll find a nice quiet place with people your own age. Maybe we can all have Sunday dinners together." Sacrifices, the word tasted bitter. I had been sacrificing for years without anyone noticing. I smiled politely and said, "Sacrifices come in many forms, Susan. Some are louder than others." She looked confused but let it go. That evening, after Harold and Susan left for their hotel, the tension returned. David cornered me in the kitchen while Lisa was putting the kids to bed. His voice was low and angry again. "What was that about at lunch, Margaret? Talking about the exact rent like you're some kind of expert. Are you trying to make trouble before you leave?" I wiped the counter slowly, buying time. "I'm not trying to make trouble, David, I'm just stating facts. This apartment costs a lot. You've been lucky to afford it." He stepped closer. "Lucky, we've worked hard. Don't act like you know our finances better than we do." I looked up at him, the man my daughter had chosen, the father of my grandchildren. In that moment I saw both the good in him, the provider who worked long hours, and the flaw that had grown too large, the need to control and push others aside when it suited him. "You assume a lot of things, David," I said quietly. "About me, about what I've contributed, about who really keeps this roof over your heads." He frowned, opening his mouth to argue, but Lisa walked in just then. She had heard the last part. "Mom, what do you mean by that?" I set the dishcloth down. The time for small hints was ending. "I mean that families sometimes forget where their help really comes from. They see only what they want to see." Lisa's face showed growing worry. "You've been saying strange things all weekend. First the movers, now this. Is there something you're not telling us?" I felt the weight of the secret pressing harder than ever. Part of me wanted to spill everything right there in the kitchen, to watch their faces change as the truth landed. But I held back one last time. The movers would start packing on Monday. The lawyer's letter was ready to be delivered. The full reveal needed to come when they couldn't easily push it away or twist it. Instead, I said, "There are things you don't know, Lisa. Things I chose not to burden you with because I loved you both and wanted you to feel secure. But love without truth can create bigger problems later." David rolled his eyes. "This sounds like guilt tripping. We're not children, Margaret. If you have something to say it clearly." I shook my head. "Not yet. Some truths need the right moment so they can be heard properly." Lisa reached for my arm. "Mom, you're scaring me. Are you okay? Is this about your health? Do you need more help than we realized?" The concern in her voice was real, but it came too late, after the yelling, after the nodding, after planning to replace me with his parents. It mixed with the betrayal and made the pain even sharper. "I'm healthier than you think," I told her, "and I've been helping more than you realize." The weekend ended with polite goodbyes to Harold and Susan. They promised to return the following weekend with more of their belongings to start settling in. David looked relieved as he closed the door behind them. "See, everything is working out. Next week will be busy, but good busy." Lisa didn't look as sure. She helped me clear the table in silence, stealing glances at me the whole time. Sunday night, after the kids were asleep, I sat alone in my room with the folder of papers. The bank statements showed every transfer I had made. Month after month, year after year. 3 full years of covering the rent completely so they wouldn't have to worry, so Lisa could work part-time, so David could take that promotion without extra stress, so the grandkids could stay in their good school. I had done it quietly because I remembered how hard Robert and I had struggled when Lisa was young. I didn't want them to carry the same fears, but my silence had taught them to take help for granted. That was my mistake, the one that led us here. Monday morning the movers arrived right on time, 2 strong men with boxes and tape. They started in the living room, carefully wrapping my small collection of books and photos. David watched from the doorway, his arms crossed tight. "This is really happening," he muttered. Lisa tried one more time in the hallway. "Mom, please slow down. We can cancel the movers. David's parents aren't moving in for another 2 weeks. We can use that time to talk properly." I looked at my daughter and saw the regret already starting to form in her eyes, even though she didn't understand why yet. "Talking properly should have happened before the yelling, Lisa, before you nodded when he called me a burden." Her face crumpled. "I know I hurt you, I'm so sorry, I was weak in that moment. David was so sure and I didn't want to fight with him, but you're my mother, I never wanted you to feel unwanted." The words were sincere, but they landed on wounds that were still fresh. I touched her cheek gently, the way I did when she was a child. "I believe you regret it now, sweetheart, but regret doesn't erase the pain, it just shows us what we broke." David overheard and stepped in. "Enough with the drama, if you're moving then move, my parents are counting on this." The movers continued their work, carrying boxes toward the door. I watched them, feeling a strange mix of sadness and quiet strength. The apartment that had been my home for years was starting to look empty in places. Around midday there was a knock at the door. It was a courier with an envelope from my lawyer. I signed for it and set it on the kitchen table where everyone would see it. Lisa noticed it first. "What's that, Mom?" "A letter," I said simply. "It explains some things. You should read it together when you're ready." David picked it up, turning it over in his hands. "Maury secrets, this is getting ridiculous." I didn't answer. Instead, I went to help the movers wrap a small lamp that had belonged to Robert. The grandkids came home from school to find boxes everywhere. Jacob started crying when he saw his favorite storybooks being packed. Emma hugged me tight and whispered, "Don't go, Grandma, please." Their tears were the hardest part. I comforted them as best I could, promising visits and special days together, but I knew the family dynamic was changing forever. That evening, as the first load of boxes waited by the door, David and Lisa sat at the kitchen table with the unopened letter between them. The apartment felt different already, emptier and heavier at the same time. I stood in the doorway and said quietly, "When you read that letter, remember that I never wanted to hurt you. I only wanted to protect you. But protection without honesty creates its own kind of damage." Lisa looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "Mom, whatever is in there, we can fix this. We're family." David remained silent, staring at the envelope like it might bite him. I turned and walked slowly back to my room, my hip aching from the long day. The pain in my heart felt deeper now, a mixture of the old betrayal and the new regret that was spreading through all of us. They had caused the pain by choosing convenience and his family over me. They had betrayed the quiet support I had given for years. The mistake was mine for hiding the truth too well. I had tried to cover the full cost of my help, thinking it would keep peace. Now the consequences were here. The revenge wasn't loud shouting or angry fights. It was the simple act of letting the truth finally breathe. And as they sat there with that letter waiting to be opened, I knew the real shock was only moments away. David would go pale when the numbers hit him. Lisa would feel the weight of her nod in a whole new way. The family connections that had seemed so strong would be tested by honesty. I closed my door and sat on the bed, listening to the low murmur of their voices as they finally tore open the envelope. The cliffhanger of their reaction hung in the air like thick smoke. The truth was out there now, plain and impossible to ignore. Who had really been the burden all along? Who had been carrying the family without anyone noticing? Soon they would understand why the revenge of quiet truth had become necessary, and the emotional consequences would reshape everything they thought they knew about love, gratitude, and the real cost of family. The sound of the envelope tearing open carried clearly through the thin walls of my bedroom. I sat on the edge of my bed, hands folded in my lap, listening. My heart beat steady but heavy. This was the moment everything had been leading toward. No more hints, no more quiet sacrifices. Just the plain truth, written in black and white by my lawyer with copies of every bank transfer attached. I heard Lisa's voice first, soft and confused. "What is this, David? It says Mom has been paying the rent, the full amount, for 3 years. David's reply came sharp and fast. "That can't be right, let me see." There was silence for several long seconds. Then the papers rustled again as he flipped through the statements. I could picture his face turning from doubt to disbelief, and finally to that pale, drained look I had imagined so many times. $5,200, Lisa whispered. "Every single month, signed from Mom's account. Why didn't we know?" David's voice cracked a little. "This has to be a mistake. We've been paying the landlord, I transfer the money myself." But even as he said it, the doubt was clear. The letter laid everything out simply and clearly. 3 years ago, when their finances had gotten especially tight after Jacob's birth and some unexpected medical bills, I had stepped in quietly. I spoke with the landlord, added my name properly to the lease as a co-signer, and began covering the full rent so they wouldn't have to worry. I never told them because I didn't want them to feel ashamed or dependent. I thought protecting them from stress was the loving thing to do. Now that choice had come full circle. I heard a chair scrape back. David's footsteps moved quickly across the floor. He knocked on my bedroom door but didn't wait for an answer before opening it. His face was exactly as I had pictured, pale, eyes wide with shock. Lisa stood right behind him, tears already streaming down her cheeks. "Margaret, Mom," David said, using Mom for the first time in years. His voice sounded smaller than I had ever heard it. "Is this true? You've been paying the entire rent this whole time?" I looked at both of them calmly. "Yes, every month. I never missed one payment." Lisa stepped forward, her hands shaking as she held the letter. "Why didn't you tell us? All this time we thought you were just living here, that we were supporting you," David even said. She couldn't finish the sentence. The memory of the argument hung between us, heavy and painful. The yelling, the words, "You're a burden," her nod of agreement. I stood up slowly, my hip protesting after the long day of packing. "I kept it quiet because I love you. After your father died, I had the means to help. I saw how hard you were both working. I remembered how stressful money was when you were little, Lisa. I didn't want the grandkids to grow up feeling that pressure, so I covered the biggest bill so you could breathe easier." David sank down onto the chair by my desk. He looked completely lost. We had no idea. I thought we were the ones carrying the load. I complained about money all the time. I pushed for my parents to move in because I believed we needed the extra help around the house to balance things. Lisa wiped her tears, but more kept falling. Mom, I nodded when David yelled at you. I agreed you should leave so his family could move in. I betrayed you. My own mother, who has been holding us up this entire time without ever asking for thanks. How can I ever forgive myself for that? The room felt thick with regret. David stared at the floor, his shoulders slumped. I called you a burden to your face. I made you feel unwanted in your own home. And all along you were the reason we could even afford this place. I feel sick. I don't know what to say except I'm sorry. Deeply, truly sorry. I sat back down on the bed and looked at them both. The pain was still there, raw and real. But seeing their faces, hearing the genuine regret in their voices, brought a strange kind of peace mixed with sadness. You caused the pain by assuming I was taking instead of giving, I said gently. The betrayal happened because you stopped seeing me as family and started seeing me as someone in the way. The mistake was mine too. I hid the truth too well, thinking silence would protect our relationship. Instead, it let resentment grow in the dark. I tried to cover the full cost of my help so you wouldn't feel pressure, but that meant you never learned to value it. Lisa knelt in front of me and took my hands. Her fingers were cold. I was weak. David's parents kept calling and he was stressed from work. I chose the easy path instead of standing up for you. I'll carry that regret for the rest of my life. You've always been there for me, Mom, from the day I was born, and I repaid you by trying to push you out. David cleared his throat, his voice thick. My parents, they were so excited. I already told them the room was theirs. But now I don't know how to fix this. We'll call them tonight. Tell them the plans have changed. This is your home, Margaret. We want you to stay, please. I looked at my son-in-law and saw a man who had finally been forced to face the truth about himself. He wasn't cruel by nature. He was flawed like all of us, and he had let pride and pressure blind him. The emotional revenge wasn't in shouting or winning an argument. It was in the quiet moment when the truth stripped away every false assumption and left only regret behind. I won't lie, I said. The hurt runs deep. Hearing my own daughter agree that I should leave so someone else could take my place that wounded me in a place that may never fully heal. But I also see how sorry you both are. Family damage like this doesn't disappear overnight. It takes time, honest talk, and real change. Lisa nodded, still crying softly. We'll do whatever it takes. Counseling if you want. Maury appreciation every single day. The kids need you here, we need you here, not just for help but because you're the heart of this family. We talked for a long time that night. I explained every detail so nothing remained vague. How Robert's investments had left me comfortable. How I had watched their struggles and chosen to step in quietly. How month after month I transferred the money without ever mentioning it, believing love meant carrying the load silently. David listened without interrupting, his face still pale. When I finished, he said, I feel like such a fool. I bragged to my parents about how well we were managing. I pushed you out thinking we were being responsible. The consequences, I almost destroyed the best thing in our lives. You. The grandkids woke up later and found us all sitting together. Emma sensed something important had happened. She climbed into my lap and asked, Are you staying, Grandma? I hugged her close and smiled for the first time in days. Yes, sweetheart, I'm staying. Jacob cheered and wrapped his arms around my neck. Over the next few weeks, the changes came slowly but steadily. David called his parents and explained the situation honestly. They were disappointed, but understood once they learned the full story. Harold even apologized to me over the phone, saying he never wanted to cause family pain. Lisa started small daily habits of gratitude. She began asking about my day, helping with my hip exercises, and making sure I ate with the family every night. David took over more chores around the house and stopped making comments about old people ways. The kids thrived with all of us together, and the apartment no longer felt crowded. It felt full in the right way. There were still hard days. Some nights I lay awake remembering the yelling and the nod that had broken my heart. Forgiveness didn't come instantly. It grew gradually, watered by honest conversations and consistent effort. One evening about a month later, Lisa and I sat on the couch after the kids were in bed. She held my hand and said, Mom, I'll never forget how close I came to losing you, not just from the apartment but from my life. The betrayal I showed you taught me something painful but important. Family isn't about who takes up space. It's about who shows up with love, even when no one sees it. David joined us and added quietly, I learned that real strength isn't controlling everything. It's admitting when you're wrong and working to make it right. I regret every harsh word I said. You weren't a burden, you were the foundation. I looked at both of them and felt the last tight knot in my chest begin to loosen. The lesson here is simple but deep, I told them. Never assume you know the full story of someone's sacrifices. Gratitude must be spoken, not taken for granted. And when you hurt the people who love you most, the regret can be heavy, but honest love can still rebuild what was damaged. The movers had long since been cancelled. My boxes were unpacked again. The apartment returned to its familiar rhythm, but with a new warmth. David's parents visited as guests instead of future residents, and the relationships grew more respectful. In the end, the emotional revenge wasn't about making them suffer forever. It was about forcing the truth into the light so real healing could begin. The pain had been necessary to wake us all up to what truly matters. If you're listening to this and carrying hurt from family betrayal, remember this. Sometimes the quietest truths carry the loudest lessons. Speak them when you need to. Protect your heart, but don't hide your light. And if this story touched you, please like the video, leave a comment telling me what you would have done in my place, and subscribe so you never miss stories about real family lessons and second chances. Thank you for staying with me through every chapter. Our family is still healing, still learning, but we're together, and that more than anything is what matters most.